Kappa of Tajimi by Joshua Linvers, December 10th, 2024. Sometimes the reasons why we do things are lost to time. Reasons become traditions, and while traditions can be wonderful, younger generations often ignore them as their meaning slips away. Let this story serve as a lesson. As pointless or outdated as an ancestor's custom may seem, it is wise to consider its meaning from multiple angles before discarding it. Taro and Oyuki lived together with their son, Jiro, and Oyuki's elderly mother, O-Rin. Their small home stood along the banks of the Tajimi River, near the town of the same name where O-Rin grew up. Since O-Rin was a child, her parents had warned her about Kappa. Kappa are tall, lanky monsters who live in lakes and rivers, her father had said. They look like your Uncle Masanori if he were part turtle. At this, O-Rin's mother would cast a disapproving glance at her husband before following up. Don't give Kappa a reason to bother you. They are cruel creatures. Stay out of their home and respect that every river is dangerous even if they seem calm. Her mother also insisted on a family practice. Throw a cucumber into the river once a week as an offering. As long as Kappa are not starving, they will remain in the water and leave us in peace. When Rin looked anxious, her father would try to ease the tension with humor, joking that she shouldn't worry too much because Kappa preferred boys. Why boys, Papa? Because they had their own cucumbers dangling between their legs. Seizing his chance to make the family laugh, he'd hold a real cucumber near his groin and prance around foolishly. One more thing, Rin-chan, he added. Kappa want our shirokodama, our soul stone. They think we hide it in our buttholes. Everyone would laugh and the fear would lessen. But when O-Rin was in her early teens, tragedy struck. On a blistering summer day, families lounged by the calm, shimmering river, roasting fish and sipping sake. Two brothers, Kisaburo and Kintaro, who had grown up near O-Rin's family, waded through the water, collecting stones and seeing who could throw them the furthest. Kisaburo pointed out something that looked like a golden dish beneath the water's surface, caught in a slightly stronger current. Determined and confident, Kintaro reached in, submerging his arm nearly to the shoulder. O-Rin and Kisaburo both saw it. A flash of green, a turtle-like head, and long, kelp-like arms wrapping around Kintaro's mouth. In an instant, Kintaro was dragged below and swept into the white water. His body was never found. That horrifying memory bound O-Rin and Kisaburo as witnesses to supernatural forces, one that seared into their minds the truth of the Kappa's danger. From that day onward, O-Rin never dared ignore her parents' warnings. Throughout her children's and grandchildren's lives, O-Rin continued the ritual of tossing cucumbers into the river. For decades, she kept the Kappa at bay, even as her body weakened with age. In recent years, as her bones ached and her strength faltered, she found it difficult to continue alone. No longer able to manage the offerings herself, she asked her son-in-law, Taro, to help maintain the tradition. He agreed outwardly, but never followed through, believing it too great a waste of precious food. Oyuki, much like her husband, dismissed her mother's concerns as superstition and nonsense. Weeks passed without a single cucumber offering, and the hunger of the Kappa grew. One afternoon, O-Rin and Oyuki were washing clothes at the river's edge. It had been decades since O-Rin stood in the river's water, a decision made by trauma, though Oyuki had no such feelings. They were discussing trivial matters when it seemed that Oyuki had misstepped and lost her footing, falling into the water. Though the current there was gentle and shallow, she seemed confused and flailed as if unseen hands dragged her under. O-Rin, frail but desperate, rushed forward into the river, yet could not reach her daughter in time. Panicked, she ran back toward their home screaming for help. Oyuki's body was found downstream, lifeless and cold. Later, their old friend Kisaburo, who had studied healing and become the town physician, examined Oyuki's remains. He reported bruises consistent with rocks, but something more disturbing as well. Trauma near her anus and missing organs. Horrified, O-Rin exclaimed, "Kappa!" Kisaburo nodded grimly, believing the same. Confronting Taro, O-Rin said, "It was the Kappa, Taro. The Kappa drowned Oyuki and took her shirokodama." Taro responded with scorn, "Again with the Kappa nonsense. I've heard enough. I just lost my wife today, and now I have to look after her crazy old mother alone? Don't speak of Kappa under my roof again, or you can find another place to live." Bitter and grieving, O-Rin fell silent, holding a weeping Jiro in her arms. Years passed. Despite his mother's death and his father's intolerance of his grandmother, Jiro grew into a cheerful young boy. When Taro was away, Orin shared her stories with him in hushed tones. She explained how Kappa had taken her childhood friend and his mother and taught him ways to escape such creatures if they ever came for him. "The source of a Kappa's power is water," she said. "They're harmless without it, so if they confront you on land, it's because they're able to keep water in an indent atop their head. Kappa are sticklers for proper etiquette. Bow deeply to a Kappa, and it will feel compelled to bow even lower. That will spill its water, sending it scurrying back to the river. That's when you run." Grandma's stories are always so detailed, he thought. One day, as Jiro walked home from his lessons, he spotted a tall and unfamiliar visitor crouched down in the middle of the river. As Jiro approached the riverbank to get a closer look, the figure slipped into the water like an eel and then crawled onto the riverbank's rocks. In what seemed as quickly as a heartbeat, Jiro found himself barely 2 tatami mats length away from it, which, when it stood up, towered over him with a thin green slimy body, seaweed on its head, a turtle shell, a duck's bill for a mouth, and very large, observant eyes with a gaze fixed on him. "Kappa!" Jiro panicked. "Hello," he managed, offering a bow. True to Orin's words, the Kappa returned the bow, spilling its water, and made an expression with its eyes that signaled annoyance. Are you hungry?" Jiro asked, fumbling in his bag for the emergency cucumber Orin had always insisted he carry. The Kappa glared, silent. It slowly receded into the water. Jiro's legs felt rooted to the ground. The Kappa swam like a frog, a short, mesmerizing slow loop with its head swiveling like an owl, never taking its sight off Jiro. Before he knew it, the Kappa re-emerged on land. Jiro extended his arm to offer the cucumber. Hearing the voice of her grandson outside, Orin lovingly opened the door and her face contorted with dread. She screamed, "No, Jiro, run!" Jiro glanced over to his grandmother's terrified face. In that instant, the Kappa lunged forward and seized him, dragging him into the river never to be seen again. This event caused Orin to slit her throat, unwilling to live in this world without her only source of happiness. Rivers are dangerous places. Do not forget that.